Hi guys, this is Nadia from Ibali Crafts, and today I want to show you how to create a 3D suncatcher tree. If you enjoy my tutorials, consider subscribing because I upload new stuff all the time. Also, if you share your version on social media, it would be absolutely awesome if you could give my channel a mention. Right, let's get started. So I'm going to demonstrate to you on some shorter sections of wire. Obviously you need a lot more wire than I'm going to use here to show you. It's just easier to show you the weave on a small piece. So we're going to take our weaving wire, fold it in half, and we're going to wrap it around the base wire once before picking up a second wire, wrap it around wire 1 and 2, then slot it in between wire 1 and 2, bring in a third wire, wrap it around wire 2 and 3, and bring it in between wire 2 and 3, bring in a fourth wire, wrap it around wire 3 and 4, bring it in between wire 2 and 3, and then the fifth wire. So we're going to wrap it around 4 and 5, and we're going to bring the weaving wire in between wire 2 and 3 and wrap it around wire 3 and 4 before bringing it down in between wire 1 and 2 and wrapping it around wire 2 and 3, and then lastly wrapping it around wire 1 and 2. And then we're going to go around the base wire 5 times, and this is called the cornrow weave, or at least that's what I call it. And then we're going to repeat this exact same procedure, except that for the next set it is only with the 4 wires. We're only going to go around the top 5th wire every 4 revolutions of this. So we're going to go around again wire 1 and 2, then around wire 2 and 3, and then around wire 3 and 4, and we're not going up to the top, we are going to go back down. So it means in between wire 1 and 2, it's not going, and then wrap it around wire 2 and 3, and then going back down around wire 1 and 2, and then we start with our 5 wraps around the base, and then we're going to repeat this. There's a little inset on the left here that shows you exactly how the pattern looks. Obviously you need to do this with your longer wires like so. So that's what it looks like. So you've got a good length. Obviously the this longer we've completed, and we're just going to continue until we have enough of life to be, the longer you need to do the weave and the longer you need the wires to be. So we need to create a little bit of a gap in between the weaves, and for that I'm going to remove the innermost wires. I'm only going to keep the top, and I'm going to pull out all of the remaining wires. So you may need to trim them from the center, as the weaving wire may keep it in place and there's a bit of grip, so you just trim them off in sections, and then get rid of the innermost wire. So I've kept the bottom 2 base wires and the top base wire only, and the rest I'm pulling out, and that kind of creates the effect of, it looks a little bit like gallery wire actually if you do that. So you can see the wire has a bit of friction to it. There we go. We're going to do the same on the other side. And then the last wire. So obviously you need to just take your time with that, not to bend the weaves out of shape. So once you're satisfied and you've got all the wires out, we're going to shape the actual base. Now this can change right up to the end, so it doesn't really matter if you're exactly happy with the shape or not. It's actually easier to shape it once the top wires have been joined, so that you get a bit more rigidity from the top. So I'm going to give it an initial shape, as you can see here. So just form it with your hands, and then I'm just going to bend the top wires outwards on each side. Do the other side as well. And then we are just going to fold it inwards, and we're going to use the weaving wire left over from the cornrow weave, and we're going to attach the top two wires like so. So I'm just going to go around the top and just bring up the weave a little bit to level it up, and then we're going to bring it closer, as close as possible to the other side, and we are going to wrap around like so. So we're going to go around both wires. So push the weaves with your fingernail, and we're going to go around them again. And once we've done that, we are going to wrap around each wire individually. So that's once, and then around the bottom wire once, and then we're just going to push the weave down. So that is the weave. So it's twice around both wires, then once around the top wire and once around the bottom wire, and then we repeat the process. It's twice around both, and so forth. There's a little inset on the left here that shows you what the weave looks like. So go around both, and I've woven a section here, and this is what the actual weave looks like. So we're going roughly about 3 or 4 centimeters. It depends how long you actually want the bale to be. This is really just, it's not really a necklace anyway, it's just to attach whatever you're going to use to attach to the wall. So make it as long as or as short as you like. So we're going to bend the bale outwards a little bit, and then we're going to feed the two legs of the bale through the center. So I'm just going to bring the legs through, and all I'm doing here is then anchor those two legs to the outside, or rather to the inside of the frame, just once or twice. Just take your time with that. It's a prominent place, so you want it to look neat and tidy, so just wrap it twice or so. If you want, for looks, you can do 3 times depending on how you want this area to look. And that's why I always like to have a little bit of extra length to my wire, so I've got something I can hold on to. Just use your pliers to shape, and that's why again I like my bent nose pliers for this sort of application. They're quite handy to have, so if you don't have a pair, I really recommend. That's what it looks like so far. And next we are just going to get rid of those wires. You could actually keep them to do some extra design work with it later on. I've just decided to trim them off, and that's what it looks like. As I said, you can shape this much better now than you could when they weren't attached at the top, so give it a shape that you are happy with. I think I changed this about 100 times until I was actually satisfied with the exact shape. Right, so next we need to create the leaves of the tree. So for this I'm going to pick up my 0.4 weaving wire and then some seed beads. So each leaf has about 5 seed beads. Now if you wanted to, you could start with smaller leaves from the bottom and then make the leaves bigger as you go from the inside. Would actually look quite nice. I've just made them all the same size, so it's 5 seed beads on the middle of your weaving wire. Then I'm wrapping it around, twisting it around itself around 3 or 4 times. The more you twist, the longer the leaf. So I've gone around 4 or 6 times depending on what you want it to look like. So then next I'm going to feed the beads onto the weaving wire to one side, and once again I am twisting these together. So just be very careful. If you twist too hard, you very easily snap the wire, so you need to be very careful. So once you've attached the leaf, you need to create another length of the stem. So 6 wraps in between before you then move on to add more seed beads. So again, another 5 seed beads. Feed these on and then twist these closed as close to the stem as possible. Just make sure you leave enough of a wire so that you can twist like that, and then once again twist the stem together with a couple of wraps. Just play around with the amount of wraps that you think looks nice. You know, obviously the tree is quite small, it needs to be quite condensed, so you don't want the leaves to be too elongated, so I would recommend to keep it at 4 to 6 wraps to make sure that the tree doesn't grow too big to fit within the frame. Obviously the bigger your tree, the more wraps and the more seed beads you need to use. So I'm going to do a couple of more, and then don't forget to do the stem. So twist and move downwards, and make sure that you have one leaf on each side, opposing side, as you go down. So now we need to take one of the wires and bring it back up to the top. So I'm just wrapping this around the stem I have just created to bring it out roughly at the top. Some of them need to be halfway, so some to the top, some halfway, just because we are going to need those wires to attach it to the frame later on. So this one I've gone all the way to the top, and that's what it looks like so far. So now I've got a second one that I have created, and we're going to twist this one together with the first one. So this will already create a little bit of a bulk. So that's the starting point of our branches. Okay, so we're going to keep doing this. So there's another set of leaves that I have, and we're going to shift it down a tiny bit so that it's staggered, and then we're going to wrap these together as well. So you can see how I do this. I keep the legs apart and I use them to twist. When I bring in the new section, I yet again use half the legs from one end and half the legs from the other bunch rather, so that they get twisted together. And you keep doing this until you've got one solid branch. And you would need about 3 solid branches, I would recommend, and that would make up a tree. So that's what this one would look like, and I'll show you in a second what I've done with the rest. So this is all the branches, and now you're going to use these lots to create the tree. So obviously the bigger the tree, the more of these you need. So I'm aiming to create about 3 branches of those. So again, I'm spreading the sort of legs of each in half, and then I'm going to do the same on the other so that I can match them up. And then I'm twisting, not too many wraps, you don't want to make it too long. There you go, and you can see how nicely that is growing. And I'm going to do the same. So open up the other side again. And then we are just going to join . You can see the wires at the top. We're going to be using those later on. So that's the tree complete, and you can see I've got sort of 3 main branches that I have created. You can do whatever you like look wise, so just play around with it and see. So before I attach the tree, I'm already going to give it sort of gnarly look, because it's much easier to do before you attach it rather than later. So I'm shaping it now, and this is what it looks like so far. We're now going to place it inside the frame. So the next step is just a little bit fiddly, because obviously you've got ton of wires. You need to place it first. So not every single wire is going to get attached, right? I've prepped them all just in case I need the wires, so you don't really have to do it. But because at the time I don't really know which branch I will use to attach to the frame, I have just put a wire at the top of each leaf just to make sure I've got one in case I needed it. So I'm just going to feed it through one of the empty spaces that at the of the base wire, and I'm just going to wrap the weaving wire from the branch around that base wire 2 or 3 times and secure it. Now you need to do this with quite a lot of the branches, and you're going to have to check for your tree to see what looks best. So I can't really tell you here which one to attach. It just entirely depends on how you would like it to look and where you want to place it. Now you can also create a tree growing out of the back if you want to. For that you probably need double the amount of the tree that I've created. So if you want it to grow out of the back as well, you need to double up on the leaves, okay? So I've just decided to keep it 3D from the front, so that's all I've used. So you can see me here pulling some branches through to the back so that I can attach them. So feeding it through. And you can see why I said it's a fiddly business at the moment. So it's going to take some patience, but it's definitely worth it once you've done it. So I'm going to do one section on the other side as well. So it's always good to attach branches in different areas so that it's anchored. And once you've done that, you can then go about attaching it properly. As I said earlier, it's good to bring the wires up when you're attaching the wires to the leaves, to bring it up halfway so that you can attach some branches halfway, some at the tip. So just continue with that and attach all of the branches that you need. Okay, so that's mine attached. As you can see, not all of them have been attached to the frame. Some of them are staying bare and loose at the front because obviously I want to bring them out so they don't need to be attached to the frame. So next I'm going to trim these off because I don't need them anymore. So once you're satisfied that they are attached safe and secure, we're just going to trim these off. So once again, just take your time. Do the same on the other side. And that's what it looks like without all of the wires. So next we're going to attach the roots. So same principle. So we're going to sort of separate it out into 3 sections. The main section at the bottom is going to be roughly the largest. So I would say you have a few more wires in the center than you have on the outside. So once I've done that, I'm giving them a quick twist to separate them out neatly. And then once I've done that, I'm going to start on the right. And I'm going to begin by separating this out into smaller branches and so forth. And you just need to make sure that as you're separating them out, you end up with sort of 3 wires in the last branches. So each bottom branch that is going to be reaching the frame needs to contain about 3 wires because we're going to use those to spread them out at the base and attach them to the frame. But you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So as you separate them out, give them another twist. And once again, this is something that will take a bit of time, and take your time with this because this is a very sort of visible aspect of the tree. So once you've done that, do the same with the remaining roots, and that's what it looks like. So once you're satisfied with how the roots look, we're going to attach them. And once again, I'm going to start attaching from the center outwards. That way I can control the look of the roots and how far the roots go up on each side. So you want to make sure that it's obviously balanced. So always start from the center. And the same principle as we did at the top, we are wrapping it around the top a few times. I mean the base wire a few times before we then trim it off. Just make sure it's nice and secure. We're not trimming off the wires just yet, by the way, so don't cut them off. That is going to happen later, and I'll explain why when we get to it. So we're just going to attach these a few times, and in this instance you want to make sure that there's no gaps when you're attaching them, so that will help the aesthetics. So wrap the wires around as many times so that when all the roots are attached, there's no gaps and all of the sort of base wire at the bottom is covered with the wraps from the root. So pull this through. And then obviously just continue with this until you have them all attached. So once you've attached the first one, we move on to the second one. And again, your tools are quite handy in this. So again, just like with the attaching the top, attaching the bottom is also fiddly business. And it's a bit time consuming, but as I said, it's definitely worth it. So I'm going to pull the bottom through. And then just make sure when the wire is attached, it points out towards the back. So all of the wires need to come out towards the back. You don't want to cut them off at the front. So now we're going to do the outside and move up each side. So next we're going to create a little detail on the side, and for that we're going to use some more weaving wire, and we're going to use the two remaining base wires on either side of the frame. And we're going to create a very simple 2x5, super easy. All it is we go twice around each base wire, twice around both base wires, sorry, and then 5 times around the bottom wire, like so. There's a little insert again on the left that shows you what it looks like. So once we've done that, we're going to rotate it in a clockwise motion, like so. And we are then going to shape it and place it against the frame. I do recommend to do each step at the same time if you're doing a symmetrical piece, because it helps you with the symmetry. It helps me anyway. So once I've done the twirl on the left, I would then do the twirl on the right, just to make sure that they are the same size. I find that easier, but not everybody's the same. So going to add another detail there, just another anti-clockwise. And then I'm going to continue once again with the 2x5 weave. So once again, little insert there on the left, so it's twice around both wires and once and 5 times around the base wire. Okay, so push this up. That's it. So we only need about 3 sets of this, and then we're going to twist the bottom wire in a clockwise motion. Just give it a little swirl, and then we're going to trim this off. And then the remaining wire on the top, we are going to shape it around this twirl, and we are going to give this a twirl also a bit further down. So this time the twirl is going to go in an anti-clockwise direction. So I'm just going to trim it off, and as I said, do this with the other side at the same time so that you have got the same length of wire. And then I'm just going to give it a bit of a twist. And next, I'm just going to shape the inside wire. And lastly, we're going to create a figure of 8 weave around in between both wires. So it's twice around one wire, cross it over to the other wire, and then weave it twice around that one, like so. Then we cross it to the other side, twice around that wire, and then we keep crisscrossing forward, wrapping it twice around each wire each time, and that will give you a beautiful figure of 8 weave. Now as you grow further down, you want to wrap 3 or 4 times around the longer wire to give you a little bit more of an elongated, drawn out effect. So you would go twice around the inside small twirl and 3 or 4 or 5 times around the larger wire on the outside, and that's what it would look like. So then we are just going to use the remaining wire to attach this little detail to the frame as well. Obviously you want to make sure it's secured, because this is not a wearable, well, you could wear it, but it's not sort of a piece that you'd wear because it's quite large, so it's not like the twirls are going to get hooked on clothing or anything like that, but you still want to make sure that it's secured. So I'm going to wrap it around that a couple of times. And obviously once you've done that, make sure it's secure, trim it off, and then obviously make sure the other side is symmetrical. So we're going to do that one next. So next we are going to shape the roots. And the reason why I didn't trim off the wires is because we are going to adjust the roots like that, and we're going to give it bends and twists. And as we do this, the wire, if we had trimmed it off, the wires would potentially slip away from the frame because we are shifting it as we're twisting, so we're elongating it. And that's why I left the trimming of those wires last. So all we're doing here is we're giving the roots a little bit of a canali look, and we are doing this by kind of twisting each root individually, like so. And you can see how it pulls the wires at the bottom, and that's why it's really important not to get rid of the root wires until you've done this aspect of the design. And always make sure that the wires are being pulled out at the back. And next we're just going to trim these off. And that's that. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to subscribe. As I said, I do upload new stuff all of the time. If you want to see what I get up to. Otherwise, I do have a Facebook, TikTok, Instagram. You know that I've got a YouTube account, but yeah, visit me on all of those under Mbali Crafts. And why not join our fantastic little artists group, which is called Wire Wrap and Jewelry Artists Worldwide. We're a fun bunch, and we always have some sort of challenge going. Yeah, so come and join us there. And lastly, for all of you square and half round wire needs, I've got more workshops, I've got more tutorials, all on my website at the moment under construction, but you can find it all in my Etsy shop at the moment. So that's it for me, and see you soon.